Hello, good moms.
Hello, everybody. We're so excited to
Hi,
be
Lindsay.
here.
Good to see
Hello,
you.
Sunny.
Goodness, you guys, I know it's different for you guys, but for us, we haven't seen each other in a long time. Usually we record a bunch of these episodes, and Lindsay, it's so good to see you. We were
So good to see
hanging
you
out
too.
earlier trying to catch up and learn all about our mom stories that we've had over the last several weeks
Lots of
since we
them to
didn't
tell.
record.
We're so excited to be here, you guys. We can't wait to kind of
Yeah.
share this. And we're coming up with some new ideas too for how to connect you guys with us. So stay
Yes.
tuned for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's going to be a lot of fun.
a lot of
All
fun.
right. So, Lindsay, over the past several weeks, we had an incident happen in our family, which I was
Okay.
like, oh, we got to talk about this. Okay. So, as you guys know, we've done an episode on how the football season and even the practice before football season starts has kind of messed up our family schedule. And I've been not so happy about that, right?
Yep.
So this
Yep.
is kind of a continuation of
Oh,
my
boy.
feelings about something that, sometimes your kids want to participate in things that you're like, oh, I don't really know if that's like the best thing. Okay, so
Mhm.
this has to do with my oldest, Sayer. He's 15 years old. All right.
Okay.
And this is his second year playing tackle football for the high school. He's on the JV squad this year. And honestly, I have to give him a lot of props because he, last year when he was on the freshman team, he really didn't know a lot about tackle football. He never played tackle football before. So, I mean, it was like a crash course in football
Yeah.
for him, right?
Yeah.
And he worked his butt off. And it wasn't just a matter of working hard in practice, but he totally changed his diet. I mean, got more sleep, like the whole shebang, right? Because it was something that's really important to him. So I've
He was
seen
committed.
him. He's committed. Yes, and
Yeah.
he has made these
Yeah.
changes in his life, and I can see how important this is to him. And that's important to know going into this story, okay?
Okay. Mhm.
So I don't know, it's like the second, third game, I'm not even sure of the season, and he gets a concussion.
Ow.
So I wasn't even at the game, which, okay, mom guilt sets in. I'm like, oh, I'm a horrible mom. I was taking care of other kids, doing stuff with my other kids. But dad was at the game, okay? And so he I don't know exactly how the whole thing went down. As I'm told, it wasn't one of those crazy things where, it's a big impact and then the person's just on the ground and you're like, is he going to get up? Is he going to get up? You know how everyone does like the knee thing? That was not our situation.
Okay.
Okay, thank goodness,
All right.
because
Yeah.
I would have totally freaked out.
I think I would have too.
So I think what happened is that there were a couple of plays where my son just got really discombobulated. Like there was some
Mm.
sort of hit or something that happened, as he explained it later to the doctor in the emergency room. There were just some plays, and he got up, and he felt very disoriented. He couldn't even remember how to talk, which I was like, oh gosh, what's going on?
That's scary.
So
Yeah.
so we had the situation. They pulled him off the field, and that's when I got the call from my husband. So my husband calls me. I'm at home with my other kids, and he says, "Don't freak out," basically. But the physical trainer, because the school has their own, physical trainer, thinks he might have a concussion. They pulled him off the field. And what's nice is teams now, I don't know if this is all high school football teams, but they're much more aware of the dangers of this kind of stuff. So they've got
Absolutely.
protocols in place,
Mhm.
and
Especially
they
concussions,
snapped
yeah.
right into their protocol of what they
Nice.
typically do. And I do respect teams that have that as a go-to.
Me too.
But I have to tell you, Lindsay, so the game wrapped up. My husband's like, "Can you meet us in the emergency room?" And I'm like, "Oh my God." So I go there. I walk in. My son's in a hospital bed, which he's never been in except right after he was born, right? The little thing's right next to my hospital bed.
Oh,
So
boy.
he's never been in that environment. He's got like, stuff in his arm, whatever. And I just start crying, because I just,
It's
even though
not
he
a
was
scene you
talking, he
really
was
want to
fine.
see. Yeah.
No, you don't want
Don't
that,
wanna see.
right? And so
Yeah.
I was just like, "Oh my gosh," I felt so horrible, and we're in
Yeah.
the ER, and we're waiting for the doctor to come in. That took forever.
Right.
Anyway, long story short is he's okay. He's
Good.
actually back playing football now. But it
Okay.
was very difficult for me to like I didn't know how to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
Because you know, as a mom, you're trying to protect your kids. This is already something that I knew going into it. My husband played football, right? And it's like he wears his concussions as a badge of honor, but that was 20, 30 years ago,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And you always want better for your kids. I'm like, okay, that might have been okay for you, but not for my kid, right?
No
But
kidding. Yeah.
it was such a challenge because I was like, I saw the progress they had made and he was so committed to it. Because Lindsay, my initial gut reaction was to get him off that field and to never let him go back on the field, right?
Yep.
Because
Oh,
God forbid
so
something really
natural.
bad happened
Yep.
and then
Yeah.
his whole future changes, right?
Yep. Totally.
It's such a weird, it's a hard thing for parents to go through.
It's very painful, and I'm really proud of you for, actually being able to kind of hold yourself together. Seeing your kid in a hospital bed is never
Yeah.
any parent's desire under any circumstance. And I just want to unpack a little bit of what you're talking and speaking into.
Yeah.
Part of it is your reaction, obviously. Like, how do you deal with this? Here's a kid who loves this sport, this thing, this whatever it is,
Right.
and you know that he could literally get really annihilated. We'll just call it that
It's
way.
true. Yeah.
This was just a concussion. What's next is kind of where the mom brain goes. It's like, oh man, and we all know that it's, the 1% or less of kids who play these sports go on to do anything after high school.
Yes.
It's such a low number. And you're just going, okay, I know he really loves this, but seriously, couldn't he love the chess club just as much? Like
I know, right?
100%. I remember feeling this way. My son played lacrosse. So similar kind of sport. So, step one is figuring out for yourself how to stay very solid and confident, even when your kid may be in pain.
Yeah.
And then kind of step two, I don't know, did you ask or have you talked to your son about how that incident has either inspired or demotivated him for that particular sport? Like, I'm super curious, how does he feel about it? Does he feel like, ooh, I have to? I'm going to, or does he want to? Like, I want to go and do some more. So there's a real energy thing to look for in kids, because I think sometimes they feel like, well, I signed up, I have to do it. Maybe they don't.
Yeah.
Certain times.
Yeah.
At other times, when they're totally lights on and energized, it's just part of their journey. They're going to get hurt. No matter what. So I'll stop there for a second and say, what did you notice with your son?
Yeah, he was definitely the latter of, hey, not like I've committed to this, so I have to do it. But there has been, like I said, with
Big
this whole
changes.
transformation that he's been through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's specifically related to football, but at the same time, he has now learned that when you apply yourself and you really focus on something, right?
Yes.
And you may have to give up other things in the process, but you can get better at something. And, to have that kind of experience younger so that you can apply that throughout your life is invaluable, right?
Agreed.
And there's so many other lessons. That's just one example. Even though I'm not a huge fan of football, I do see like the idea of a team sport, camaraderie,
Yes.
working together. These are all things that he's going to have to deal with later in life, So there's so many good things that can come of it. But I would say specifically for him, it was, okay, this happened. Okay. And he saw what I went through. And I think he doesn't always show it, but that does have an impact on him. I know it does. Right.
Sure does.
And so he, he made some small changes.
Okay.
So one thing is he actually got there was like a protective plate that you can get that attaches somehow to your uniform,
The
or
helmet
maybe
or
it's
the
to the
uniform.
pads.
I've seen that.
Yeah, so that your head can't go
Snap.
back or this is not my area of expertise.
That's okay. No, you're describing it perfectly. I went through
You know
this
what I
with a
was talking
lacrosse
about.
player, so I do know. Yeah.
So he got that. There have been a lot of conversations, like before he could even go back to practice, and actually suit up and do things like that. Our pediatrician had to talk to him, and we have a pediatrician that's actually someone who really questions a lot of this and is very serious about educating people about, I mean, he was asking
Good.
questions like, what's your
Yeah.
position? Do you know that your position is the most common position for this injury that you just got?
There you
Right.
go.
And
Yeah.
so it was more educational, which I thought
Mhm.
was really important. And I feel like Sayer really did take those things to heart.
Yeah. Good.
It's hard to tell, football is one of those things. I was talking to my parents about this, trying to get their input.
Yeah.
And my dad said something. He said, you can't really just say be careful because that's not the nature of the sport. If you're going out on the field with
Yep.
the intention to be careful, you're
You shouldn't
probably
play.
not going to be very good
Nope.
at what you're trying
You
to
can't
do.
play.
You can't
It's an
play.
adage that I use a lot even in my world of business, so that I say to people, you can either play the game to win or
Yeah.
you can play not to lose. And if
Yeah.
you're playing not to lose, you get injured a lot more often. Even in the
Yes.
game of business, you got to play like you want to win whatever game you're playing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Oh,
I
I
so I
get that.
didn't do that with him. I
Okay.
specifically didn't. And
Okay.
it's hard for me to know, like, is he doing the stuff that they taught him,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
whatever, like whatever you do with your head, keep it down, whatever. Is he doing all of that every
Mhm.
time he makes a tackle?
Right.
I do think one of the other things that the pediatrician said though is I said, okay, there was no, because they did what was it, an MRI, a CAT scan. They did a CAT scan
Okay.
in the emergency room. They did a CAT scan. And they found out right away there was no swelling, no bleeding. So that's a good thing. But when I asked the pediatrician, I said, so I don't know a lot about this kind of stuff. Are we just looking for that or are there other things we need to be considering? And he said, if this happens again, then we need to sit down and have a real conversation because it's not just about a brain bleed or swelling.
Mhm.
There are lifelong things that can happen. And so Sayer heard that. He was in the
Good.
room when all that happened too. And he's a
Okay.
smart kid. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of making some assumptions. I didn't have that conversation with him, but there are some things that I'm seeing that I do feel like he's taking this seriously.
I think that's good,
Yeah.
and I think that as parents, right, to kind of extrapolate, we do have to take injuries of our children seriously.
Sure.
And sometimes, I look at the 4 quadrants of kind of being a human, right? You have spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical aspects to this beingness. And your son is really wanting to push hard right now on his physical aspect.
Yeah.
Like, how far can I make this thing go? How strong can I get it? How healthy can I be? And, I think about people who do biohacking and all that. Their number one mission out of the 4 is to work on the physical, right? How is this physical experience? He may have gotten an emotional and possibly even a spiritual message out of the experience he just went through with physical pain. And I know I did when I was mountain biking and had a major crash and burn and went, why am I doing this? Like,
Yeah.
I went, okay, I was trying to push myself physically. Sure, that was fun. Okay. But was it really worth all of that? And the answer was no, not really. Thank you for sharing. I don't need to do this anymore. And I think it's a fine line, right? It's how do you allow a kid to learn the lesson and to make the choice that's right for them, knowing it may not be the choice that you would make. And as a parent, that is it at the crux of
Yeah.
all of it. You got to take a deep breath and let them do it if it's where they're going to go, unless you really think they're doing it for reasons that are not their own.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
this is worthy of talking about. In junior high and high school, peer pressure and
Sure.
finding your identity is so intense
Right.
and has been made more intense over time
Yeah.
with social media and everything else, that kids struggle with being able to say, I don't want to do that anymore, because that takes confidence.
Mhm.
Takes a lot of confidence to say, I don't want to do that anymore.
That happened with one of my son's good friends. He was on his freshman team with him. And I
Okay.
think it was the first time that he had played regular, tackle football, whatever.
Mhm.
And over, between last season and this season, he decided that he didn't want to do it. He just walked away from it.
Nice.
And I was kind of surprised, but you're right. It does. It takes, he's actually now taking photos of the football players.
Hey,
They're like,
awesome. There you go.
there
He's
you
going to
go.
have a
Worked out
different role.
great.
I love that. I was blessed with my son who's now 25, right? But
Uh-huh.
he decided after college his goal was to be a rock climber, a freehand rock
Oh
climber. Just go
gosh.
decided. I know. Oh yeah. And I was like, okay, that sounds really interesting, honey. And inside I'm going, why? Why would anyone want to do this?
Right.
But
Right.
lucky for me, he did it for about 6 to 9 months. Had some
Okay.
fun, scaled up some mountains, went with some buddies, and then said, it's not really my thing. It's not my, and I went, okay,
Ooh,
thank
thank
you, God.
goodness.
But, but they do. They have to find their thing.